Hello, I'd like to welcome you to my miniature game on Operation Pedestal using the Bomb Alley rules and also the series rules from the Second World War at Sea from Avalanche Press. So as you can see, got a table, a 6x4 table set up here with a printed out map showing the convoy route from Gibraltar to Malta, looking at August 1942. And I started the scenario from about a third of the way in, maybe a quarter of the way in, because for the first part from Gibraltar to Malta, there's no activity. So I started about a quarter of the way in. And what we're looking at now is about, we can look at the sheet showing the various task forces here. Let's take a look here. We'll see how much you can actually see here, but normally you'd start August 10th. I started the actually night of August 11th. And this is the printout of all the various task forces. Just the Convoy, Task Force SX, Force R, Task Force Bellows, Task Force the Carriers, and Force the Z there. The yellow is where the task forces are all combined into one. Task Force Bellows, which is the has the HMS Furious aircraft carrier, which was tasked with transporting Spitfires to Malta. So they get to a point where they have to fly off the Spitfires to Malta, and then it returns back to Gibraltar. So that gives you an overview of the various task forces, again, combined for yellow, and then eventually they break off. Okay. I might talk about that later. So here's the box rule system for the board game, Bomb Alley from Avalanche Press. Here's the series rules. I created a series of cheat sheets for when I run the game with I basically would run it up to 4 players, 2 players per side. So all the various phases, made up all the charts, so I can just flip through it. Okay, we're now in phase 5 or phase 6, etc. all the way through. I added some of the effects charts in the back here. That helps speed up play. I've also made up various sheets for the various task forces. And these are from the rules. Okay. Again, that as well. And then for the Axis players, we've got the submarines. And we've got the torpedo boats, motor torpedo boats, various squadrons, flotillas. Okay. Here's a good reference that I used in the to make up this scenario. It was the Pedestal book by, let's see if we can get rid of that glare, by Peter Smith there. Excellent resource. One of the interesting components to it here is you get a good overview of what the convoy layout was. So this is what I used for initial deployment for the grouped convoy with escorts. You've got the battleships, and then you have the carriers, The white hollow ships here are the freighters. You've got cruisers up front and all the destroyers ringing. So use that initially. Looking at the map here. Okay. Now what you're seeing here is a fleece blanket. I scanned the map portion of it. In this case, this fleece printout is from Walmart. Before I uploaded the photo, I actually modified the image. Some of the airfields in Sicily were not supplied with names. I went ahead and modified and added two names here. That helps with the scenario, rather than just say, okay, the airfield at AH-19, it actually has a name now, Comisco. An interesting representation here is you only get like the 3 airfields, but in reality, historically, there were multiple airfields, and these represent a grouping of airfields. So we got our destination for the convoy. And then over here, we've got all the different airfields for the Germans and the Italians. Okay, I went ahead and created these bases. Okay, let's just take a look at one here. Went ahead and instead of the various chits, I created a card with the information on it, the range, actually the type, the name of the plane. Each one of these represents a squadron. So you've got BF-109F, a squadron. They're fighters. Just added a little picture. The range, the rules have it shown as 8, but I simplified it to it's half. So it's 4 out, 4 back. So it just represents the range to the target. Your air-to-air factors, naval attack, how many hit points, the steps, and what airfield it's based at. Okay. Now when you create, normally you'd start in the hangar, you would move to ready. If you had search planes at this base, like reconnaissance, you can move them into the search section. And then flights, if you were to group these together to create a naval strike, you can create a flight. Flight number 1, you would have representation there, and then you would place it where you would like to do the strike. So you've got all the different air bases here represented in the scenario. Then it's just an example of what it would look like here. You've got some reconnaissance planes. These don't actually have to be placed on the map. I just placed these out here just because I painted them up and thought, well, they're out on reconnaissance, so just show them what they look. Same with some albacores from the British convoys. Through a submarine miniature here representing where it's placed, and it has like a two square radius around it where there's the potential for various submarines from this zone to strike either of these convoys. The albacores are actually on anti-submarine warfare runs looking for submarines. And again, these don't need to be here, but I painted them up, so just throw them on the board. Let's take a look over here at our combined convoy. So this is at the beginning of the scenario. You have a massive convoy of various types of ships. Looking at the rear of the convoy here, you've got some corvettes, a tug. Again, I was talking about you've got it completely surrounded by destroyers. You've got these cargo ships, freighters. There is the one tanker, the Ohio. There's no specific, I didn't come across a specific layout of where these ships are, just the smaller ships. So I just arranged them around the carriers here and then the battleships. These are color-coded, made these tags. They're color-coded by which task force they're part of. The black number, if you can see that, is the tertiary guns. The red numbers, the anti-aircraft value. In this scenario, I don't have any Axis capital ships attacking anywhere along the convoy route. I decided that the possibility of that happening was extremely low, so I just kept it simple, just kept it historic. So I don't have to worry about secondary or main guns on these tags with these ships. And here we've got the various squadrons that would be present throughout the scenario. Put them at various heights. High altitude being the reconnaissance or the high-level bombers. Mid-range, I put the fighters. They probably should have been at a higher elevation, but decided to just put them there at that altitude, that height. And then the low elevation would be your torpedo bombers. So each one of these miniatures represents a squadron. Okay. So I probably painted up more than I needed because I could reuse some of these squadrons, like the Ju-88s. Could reuse them further in the convoy route. But I just went to town, just painted up every single squadron that could have been involved in striking the convoy or defending the convoy. Now if we switch over here to the Allied side, we get the same airbase representation here. Just move around here all the way to the Malta. So you get each one of these bases, in this case being each one's a carrier. Same thing, as you can see, the Albacore is on anti-submarine warfare, but instead of search, I went ahead and made this the cap placement, because in this scenario, there's essentially no capital ship, enemy capital ships involved. So what we're looking at right here is essentially on the second day of the convoy. I think what I'll do is maybe go ahead and stop it here and pick it up a little bit later and show you what it looks like, maybe closer to Malta. That way you can get an idea of maybe what's happening with the convoy further in as we get closer to Malta. Okay, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I forgot to mention that the reason you're seeing the ship models on the table at this point in the campaign here, this scenario, is they were spotted by a submarine the night before this turn that we've got going on right here. It was spotted by a submarine, and once it's spotted, I put it on the table, and I believe in the morning turn it was also spotted by reconnaissance planes. And also, you'll see that there's a gap in the group convoy here, and that was a freighter that took severe damage and had reduced speed and had to turn back to Gibraltar. It couldn't make it to Malta at a slower speed. It would easily be picked off. So I just wanted to point that out. And also another good reference that I found when putting this scenario together was this this book on the Italian Air Force, 1940-1943. Has I highly recommend it. It has a lot of good visuals for if you're going to paint up the various squadrons. But one of the most helpful aspects of this for me was it actually has a section here showing the order of battle for all the Italian squadrons, August 11th, 1942, and it breaks down the group, the squadrons involved, the type of aircraft, and the strength of that aircraft, and what airbase they were based at. So I used this for the Italians to paint up and represent the various Italian squadrons involved. Alright, we're back in the action here. We are currently about 3/4 the way through the convoy route from Gibraltar to Malta, and we've just had our first aerial strike. As you can see, we'll take a look at the convoy here. There's a little more excitement going on here. Last time we left off, we were back here about 1/3 of the way through the convoy route. And as you can see, we went through a couple submarine zones. It didn't amount to much. I think it only caused one transport to return back to Gibraltar. But just south of Cagliari, the Italian Air Force decided to strike the convoy that was spotted. As you can see, it has a marker here, which is flight number 1. And it was a large flight. We can take a look at what that flight composed of. Let's take a look here so we can get it in focus. Okay. So you can see there's various Italian fighters and torpedo bombers. This is after it's returning back from attacking the convoy. It was intercepted by combat air patrol from 2 of the carriers. So if we can Zoom in there. So they're on their way back to the carriers. So both sides took some damage during that the intercept. Probably half the torpedo bombers were shot down, and some of the fighter escort were shot down as well. The British lost one of their Fulmar flights. So the torpedo bombers were able to strike the convoy, and they ended up torpedoing and sinking two of the transports. Let's go ahead and spin on over to look at the British side. So there you can see the two transports that were lost, Glenorchy and the Melbourne Star. We'll take a look at the fighters here. So the little clothespins there represent damage or starting strength. So the blue clothespins represent where a squadron is at half strength. So instead of 12 fighters, they'd have 6. So you can see two of those squadrons were at half strength. And then the Fulmar, during the intercept with the Italian fighters there, they lost their 6. So the convoy's a little bit smaller. We've got 3 open spaces of the from the convoy freighters. And this was the first time the Italians decided to, which was the closest intercept from one of their air bases. Maybe we'll catch up a little bit later and see what the next major conflict will be. Alright, we're back 2 days after the last report. The convoy has split into 2 different groups now. We've got the carrier and battleship group starting to head back to Gibraltar now. And then we've got the rest of the convoy, essentially just cruisers, destroyers, and the freighters, and the 1 tanker, on the way to Malta. So there was a massive aerial assault by 3 different air bases on the just before it split. It was inconsequential. I think there was some slight damage to the Ohio, but a lot of Axis planes were shot down with minimal damage to any of the carrier planes. So I skipped over that and went straight to the night turn here, which you see just off the island of Pantelleria. This was an opportunity for the Axis E-boats to intercept the convoy as it passed by the island. There was an opportunity of 5 different flotillas to intercept. only two were able to spot the convoy and intercept. One was an Italian group, and then the other was the sole German flotilla. The Italians attacked with 4 Maz U-boats and caused some damage. And then the German 4 S-boats came in, and combined they were able to sink 2 freighters, actually 1 freighter and 1 tanker, the Ohio, and damage 2 freighters enough that they will be only able to move 1 square instead of 2, so they will have to break off from the convoy here and either go it alone or with some destroyer escorts. They will probably have some destroyer escorts. Oh, here we can take a look at the lost 2 ships there, the Ohio and the Rochester Castle. And then just a view of the E-boats, 4 Italian and 4 German. So here we've got the convoy on its way to Malta, passing by the island, as I said. Less 2 ships, and then 2 will be trailing. And let's take a look over at the carrier group. And actually they lost a destroyer from an Italian submarine. Okay, so this is the night action around the island here as it's passing by. There's not many turns left. There's 1 more night turn, and then there'll be 2 daytime turns. Okay, that's probably the last report before I give a summary and outcome of this playtest. And I'll catch you in the next one. Alright, the convoy action, Operation Pedestal, is complete. We are looking at a major British victory. Between 7 and 9 merchant ships actually made it to Malta. Historically, only 5 did by the original 14. The Axis have sustained quite a bit of destroyed aircraft, lost a fair number of submarines, and half the E-boats that actually attacked the convoy. Other than the merchant ships sunk, the British only lost 1 destroyer and not many aircraft. So they made it through quite well. So there you go. There's the complete Operation Pedestal scenario using the Bomb Alley rule set from Avalanche Press with miniatures instead of the chits and the original map. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in a future video.